So what if the problem isn't that your faith is too small? What if the problem is that you've been taught small faith doesn't count? Have you been thinking, I should be stronger by now? I should trust God more by now. I shouldn't still struggle like this. And what if none of this is actually how God sees you? In this winter season, the season where things feel slower and quieter and sometimes a little harder to read, we're learning to look beneath the surface, because winter doesn't mean nothing is happening. It just means growth is happening where we can't see it yet. If your faith feels tired, unsure, or small right now, this episode is for you. Somewhere along the way, many of us have learned that faith is supposed to feel like confident, certain, unshaken, clear. And when our faith doesn't look like that, when it feels kind of hesitant, maybe quiet or unsure, we start to question ourselves. We start to question our identity in God. We begin to wonder, maybe I'm not who I thought I was. Maybe I'm not as strong as I should be. Maybe I don't really trust Him. And winter has a way of bringing those questions to the surface, because winter isn't a season of explanation. It's a season of truth. The ground is bare, the noise is quiet, and there's nothing to hide behind. But winter is also the season where the roots are growing, even when nothing on the surface looks alive yet. And winter teaches us that clarity doesn't mean certainty. It means alignment. Honesty aligns us with reality, and God meets us there. That's why winter faith, which is kind of what we're talking about today, often looks quieter than we expect. It looks like telling the truth about where we are instead of rushing to answers. And that honesty becomes the place where small faith can begin to take root. And if you haven't noticed, I'm kind of in a wintry season. I am really enjoying being part of the season of life, this going from one season to another. And it started with the fall, accepting that the fall brings winter. And now I hear I'm in the winter, and I'm really loving the idea of getting to know our roots. What is our identity? Where is my faith? How am I doing? What does it look like? Now, when we're talking about faith, here's where things get a little confusing for a lot of us, and really for a kind of a good reason. Jesus uses two phrases that sound almost the same, but He means very different things by them. Sometimes He says, you of little faith, and other times He says, if you have a faith as small as a mustard seed. Now, at first glance, little and small, they kind of sound like the same idea, right? But they're not. And I didn't really think about this until I created this episode. And I think this is helpful for us to know. God is not about condemning us. He is not about judging us, making our life harder here. That's not what He's doing. What He's doing is growing us and enjoying watching us grow. Okay. So now I've piqued your interest here. Small and little aren't the same thing, but this is what He's talking about. Okay. When Jesus talks about little faith, He's not talking about faith that's just tiny or quiet. He's talking about faith that's been worn down by fear and things that we're seeing and things that we go through. Faith that's looking more at the situation than at God. But when Jesus talks about mustard seed faith, He's doing something completely different here. Mustard seed faith sounds like, I don't understand what God is doing, but I'm still choosing to trust Him. I don't feel strong today, but I'm still turning toward Him. So the difference isn't about size. It's about where your trust is resting. And this is where the picture Jesus gives us starts to matter, because a mustard seed may be tiny, but once it's planted, something real begins to grow. And that's exactly where Jesus is about to take us next. Okay. So Jesus chose the mustard seed on purpose. It's tiny. It's easy to miss. It's easy to overlook. And in His time, it was one of the smallest seeds that people knew. Nothing impressive about it. And that's the picture that Jesus uses for faith. Not big, not loud, not dramatic, just real. A mustard seed doesn't try to look like a tree. It just gets planted. And once it's in the ground, then something starts happening, even if you can't see it yet. And that's how faith works. Faith doesn't grow because it feels strong. It grows because it's rooted. And winter is often when that rooting process happens. Nothing on the surface looks alive, but underneath, growth is already underway. So, if your faith feels small right now, that doesn't mean it's weak. It may just mean it's doing its quiet work. And if faith really does work like that, if it grows quietly under the surface, then here's the question we don't always stop to ask. If my faith feels small, who's actually holding it while it grows? There's a verse I come back to whenever my faith feels small. Hebrews 12:2. It says we're to fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Some translations say founder and perfecter. Some say pioneer and completer. And all of those words point to the same truth. The Greek word, which I will not butcher here, means the originator, the pioneer, the one who goes first and opens the way, which means that your faith didn't begin because you figured God out. It began because Jesus reached for you. And the Greek word for the finisher, which I'm not going to butcher that one either, that word means the one who completes something, the one who brings it to maturity, not because you do everything right, but because he doesn't abandon what he begins. So when your faith feels small and tired or unsure, this verse reminds us of something really comforting. Our faith is not resting on our ability to hold on to God. Our faith is resting on Jesus' commitment to hold on to you. If Jesus is the author of your faith, then small faith is not failure. It's a beginning. If Jesus is the finisher of your faith, then weak seasons aren't endings. They're just part of the process. And that means your faith is far more secure than it feels. Here's where many of us get tripped up. We take what we're feeling and we assume it means something about our faith. Feelings are very, very unruly. They cannot be trusted. If I were really trusting God, I wouldn't feel this unsure. If my faith were stronger, I wouldn't be wrestling with this still. If I were doing this right, I wouldn't feel so tired. Have you said any of that? Okay, I've said like all three of those things probably in the last 2 weeks. And before we know it, we start measuring our faith by how confident we feel instead of by where we're actually placing our trust. But feelings are not the best measure of faith. Okay, let me just say that again. Feelings are not the best measure of faith. Winter faith often feels unsure on the surface, even when something solid is happening underneath. And that's when we confuse small faith with unworthy faith. But those are not the same thing. Small faith can still be honest. Small faith can still be choosing God. Small faith can still be growing roots. Let me ask you something. Let's just pause and reflect here. It's always good to pause and reflect. Is your faith allowed to be small right now? Or do you only give yourself permission to trust God when you feel confident? What if faith doesn't always look like certainty? What if it looks like you're just staying put? One of the most freeing truths of the Christian life is this: God does not meet you when you finally feel strong enough. He meets you right where you are. He meets you in those prayers where you're exhausted. He meets you in your hope that is small and still. He meets you in your half-formed trust. He meets you when you're whispering, God, I do not understand, but I'm still here. You don't grow faith so God will meet you. God meets you so your faith can grow. And that's especially true in seasons like this one. Winter faith doesn't look productive. It looks slow. It looks hidden. It looks like nothing's happening. But winter is when the roots are growing. And roots matter more than we realize. Roots are what are holding us steady for what's coming later. Roots are what support growth that we haven't seen yet. Roots are what shape who you're becoming. So if your faith feels small, it may not be weak. It may be rooting. Okay, so hopefully that landed somewhere for you. It did for me. I think in this season of winter, it's just really good time for us to be evaluating our roots, who we are, the basics of our faith. And I just want to remind you that this conversation is part of our winter series. This season is about slowing down enough to notice what God is doing beneath the surface in our lives, about letting roots grow, about gaining clarity and confidence and a deeper sense of who you are, not by forcing answers, but by staying present with God in the quiet. And if this episode has spoke to you, I'd love for you to follow the podcast. Like this episode, share it with someone who might need it too. That's how these conversations find the women that they're meant for. And if you're listening today and you're thinking things like, I feel stuck, I don't know why I feel disconnected from myself or God, I want clarity and confidence, but I have no idea where to start, I want you to know you don't have to sort that out alone. You're welcome to reach out for a discovery call, and we can walk through what's going on and see if my identity reset coaching package would be a good fit for you where you are right now. There's no pressure in this. It's just a conversation, because winter isn't wasted and neither are you. I will talk to you next week, friends. I love you.